Well, if it's a Wednesday morning, it is time for another episode of the About Mansfield Consumer Advice Series. I'm Steve Casillo. Appreciate you being here today. And today we have a brand new person that we're going to bring on for our series. She's going to be here every week until who knows when. She is a trademark law attorney, and she is Susana Mahady. Let's go ahead and bring her on in and say, first of all, welcome to About Mansfield, and say hello to the audience.
Thank you for having me. Hello, everybody. I'm excited to be here. My very first podcast.
Let's start with the basics. Number one, let's start, since you're brand new to the About Mansfield Consumer Advice Series, let's start with that. Who is Susana Mahady? Let's go ahead and give the brief Reader's Digest version, and then we'll get into why business owners should consider a trademark.
Well, first of all, hello again. I'm Susana. I'm an attorney. I'm actually a business attorney, and I have been practicing for a while, about 30 years. And I help small businesses and entrepreneurs make sure that they're protected and make sure that they have their contracts in place and have their brands registered so that they're protected, and make sure that they stay out of trouble, basically.
Yeah. You've, in all fairness, you've helped me out many times. I've known you for at least the 30 years that you've been an attorney, and you've gotten me out of a pinch or two. Let's talk about trademarks and why they are important. So let's start with the basics. What is a trademark, and why should a business owner consider having one?
Well, I'll let you know why it's important, because I think one of the problems that I see with a lot of businesses is that they don't really know or understand, and I'll try to briefly explain that. But a trademark is really any word. It's a phrase, a logo. You'll see them all over. I mean, we all recognize some of the famous ones, the Golden Arches, or Apple, or Coca-Cola. Like, those are all brands that have been established for a long time. So a trademark is really that that thing that identifies your goods or services, and they have to be shown in commerce. And so anyone that puts it out there for the world to see and identifies you as the owner of that brand, and that's the value that business has. So why is it important? Obviously, brands have a lot of value. When you're gonna, if you look at these big companies that have these trademarks, I mean, that's what's recognizable, and that's how people all over the world will know that is a good quality brand versus something that may not be recognizable. We all identify certain brands with value, and that's why it's an important thing to establish if that is what you're hoping to do with your business, and that is to grow and be recognizable.
You mentioned specifically by name just there, you mentioned Coca-Cola. So Coca-Cola is a trademark. Would their slogan, which I think is "It's the real thing," would that also be a trademark?
Yes. Yeah, you can. It's almost like Nike, just do it. Like, all of those things are registered trademarks. And if, I was to go and just start my own little business and I wanted to use the "Just Do It" slogan, I probably would get a letter from Nike telling me to knock it off.
How does one go about registering a trademark?
Well, registering a trademark is something that people can actually do on their own. It is a process, and it's taking a long time. I think at this point they're taking about a year, and there are a lot of nuances. But if you go on the trademark website, it's the United States Patent and Trademark Office. You can do it on your own. The problem is that a lot of people don't realize that you really have to do a comprehensive search of the mark that you plan to use before you go and try to register it, because you may be infringing on somebody else without knowing it. So you can do a search through the website, and you can even just do a Google search and see what's out there, but that doesn't always give you everything that could be similar, confusingly similar to the brand or the name that you're trying to register. So I think that's the most important step, is to make sure that you have a very thorough, comprehensive search done of the name that you want to use. Otherwise, you could be spending a lot of money on something that may not pan out at the end.
So a trademark attorney may have the resources to do a complete search for a name or a phrase, whereas a Google search, a trademark search, may not produce the same results.
Yeah, we actually use services that do very in-depth comprehensive searches, and it'll search different Secretary of State websites, social media, domain names, everything and anything, just to see what could potentially be a risk and could impede a successful registration, because you then submit the application and there's an examiner that gets assigned, and they're going to do their search. And if there's something that pops up that's confusingly similar, that's been registered or is pending, that could get your application to get kicked out. And the problem too is that you don't get your money back if you don't do it right the first time and the application doesn't go through. You may have to reapply and you lose that application fee.
All right, so I've applied. I waited my up to 1 year, and I've been granted my trademark. Does it ever expire?
Well, first of all, if that happens, congratulations, you're now a trademark owner, and you get to use that little R next to your logo and your name. And no, it doesn't expire, but you do have responsibilities and obligations to make sure that it doesn't expire. So there are periodic filings that you have to do. You have to make sure to protect it. And if someone, people have to kind of monitor their mark to make sure that it's not being used somewhere and you're not enforcing it. Because if somebody is using your mark somewhere else, that could dilute the value of your mark, especially if the value of their services are not as good as yours, or they could be riding on your coattails and you don't know it. So it's important to be monitoring your mark and make sure that somebody else isn't using it.
I'm going to throw you a little curveball then. What if someone they have registered their trademark, they've got that little R, and they find out that someone else is using their name? What resources do they have?
Well, they would have to try to enforce their mark by sending a cease and desist letter. I don't know if you've heard of that, but those are basically just communications to the other side telling them to please stop using the mark because it's registered. And when you register your trademark, it is protected nationwide. So it's all over the U.S. If you have not registered, you still have some protection, but it's just in your geographic area. So you don't have that type of security that you would if you have it federally registered. But you could still send that cease and desist letter and ask them to please stop. And if they don't stop, then a lawsuit would be, the next step. And if you sue somebody, or if you get sued for infringing on someone's mark, they could actually come after all the profits that you earned from using that mark.
Ooh.
Yeah.
You mentioned the R with around the circle around the R, the symbol that you are a registered trademark. There are also, I've seen, there's TM, there's SM, there's C with the circle around it. Isn't there also a P? What are the differences between the different symbols?
So the TM is trademark, and that can be used. Usually it's used by people that don't have a registered trademark. It's basically saying that we are claiming this as our trademark, but there's no actual registration. The R is when you actually have a federal registration. Without that R, without the registration, you can't use the R. You could get in trouble. So that is the official registration trademark symbol. Sometimes you'll see an SM, and that's not Susana Mahady. It is service mark. So a trademark is only used for either a good or a service, meaning a product or a service that you offer. So that's what you would trademark. So some people would used to use the TM for the trademark of a good and the SM for the trademark of a service. But now when you register, everybody uses the R. The C is for copyrights, which is a whole different ball game. It's a whole different office that registers your copyrights, and that's mostly for literary works, novels, books, things that
Music.
you create.
Music?
Music.
Thank
yes.
you very much. Okay.
Yes.
My listeners know I'm a musician. So
okay. Well, that one too. So,
all right.
And I suspect you haven't copyrighted any of your music. But
I don't write songs.
okay. Well, that's good.
There you go.
So you don't use the C. No, you could use your C. Obviously, you could copyright your podcast.
That's true. That's true. And we're getting there. You and I, we're going to talk. In the minute or so that we have left, is there anything that you want to recap before we get into your contact information?
I think that the most important thing to remember is that if you are using a mark, a trademark, or a slogan for your business, have someone at least perform a search before you invest a lot of money marketing that mark or that symbol or that logo. Because if, I've had it happen where people invest a lot of money, they buy the domain name, they register their LLC with that name, and they think because they have those things, they own that trademark, and they don't. That doesn't provide them any protection at all. So if they're using that name in commerce without having searched to see if someone else doesn't have that name registered, then they could be infringing. And then you have a forced rebrand. You're going to have to basically start over, and it's wasted money for all the money you've spent marketing a brand that you don't own.
If someone wanted to reach out to Susana Mahady, attorney at law, how can they, if you've got questions about trademarks, how to start one, how to register for one, how to combat someone who's infringing on your trademark, how can they reach out to Susana Mahady?
They can find me on my website. It's mahadylaw.com, or they can reach out to me by email, smahady@mahadylaw.com.
And Mahady is Mahady, mahadylaw.com.
That's it. Very good.
Welcome to About Mansfield. Welcome to the Consumer Advice Series. And we're going to do this every week until who knows when, until we run out of ideas, and then we'll just make up ideas.
I could do that.
All right. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.